Welcome to 5G Techritory. This is the first day and stage alpha. If you haven't been here before, just join in. We will be talking about what are the megatrends influencing 5G. We love to talk about future. The problem is we can't predict it. Today we've been trying to do it, understanding what are the signals we should really take care of and what are just noise. And we will continue on this, but let's think about 5G more, how these trends will influence 5G, and which are trends and which are just noise. So we have our moderator, Maija Kaale, advisor on sustainability and digitalization at the Nordic Council of Ministers office in Latvia. Then participants, Sofia Elmsen, advisor for Nordic energy research. Then 5G innovation lead for Latvia's mobilized telephones, Elina Lidere, and head of ecosystem and trend scouting at Nokia, Leslie Shannon. Maija, it's you.
Yes, thank you, Valdis. So first of all, I'm very happy to be here as a moderator of this panel discussion. And I have tried to see how many female panels have been out there on 5G topic. But I haven't seen anyone like our panel today. So this female panel on 5G megatrends could be the first one in the world, but let's make sure it's not the last one. As discussing the future of 5G is a big theme today. This panel discussion is not just part of 5G Techritory Forum, but also it's part of Nordic Talks that will circulate the content in audio format later. And I see that we are all very well set up with this digital format. But there's one thing which is really missing. And I think it's applause. Because in order to talk about the future, about the megatrends of 5G, you have to be very brave. And our panelists have been so brave and agreed to talk about this very difficult topic. Therefore, I have invented a very low-tech applause solution, also called the rain tree. And we will start our panel discussion after a really big applause to our panelists. So, welcome on stage. Why don't we start with the very key topic of today? What are the megatrends that will be driving the 5G and digitalization spheres in the next 10-20 years? Elina, why don't you start?
Thank you, Maija. Yes, about the future. I see the future with the 5G will be an era of superhumans. Yes, we will all have new superpowers available for us thanks to Internet of Things, sensors, wearable technologies, and great new super gadgets powered by artificial intelligence. Many people still think about 5G only as a better 4G, but I want to point out that 5G actually will introduce us to totally new dimensions. Till now, with the 4G, mobile network was more for internet browsing and consuming internet content. But with the 5G, there will be big shift toward a totally new experience, enhanced by possibilities of different kind of sensors, easy to use, and coming more and more available for all of us. And it is about superhuman powers. With those new sensors, we will be able to see, feel, hear, and smell the world as humans haven't been able before. It could be quite valuable sometimes, maybe to have a sense of smell like a dog, to really help us to find things, or maybe just to share the experience your pet is having. And how about cat's night vision? That also could sometimes be quite useful things to have. And to hear so good as a bat, I think that sounds like those superhuman powers we saw in movies. And of course, as for superhumans, there will be also superhuman wardrobe. Wearable technologies are coming. It will help us to monitor our health and provide doctors with more precise information. Smart clothes are already used in sports, and they will bring also really next level to gaming and entertainment possibilities. And beside superhuman sensing and superhuman clothing, there are already a lot of technologies that support, for example, disabled people who lost their legs and arms, for example. And new technology solutions are introduced also to enhance for every one of us abilities, for example, to fly even without airplanes, climb, survive, protect ourselves, to have innovative running shoes, for example, and beat world records, jet-powered flying boards, and of course drone taxis. The same things, actually, what we really saw in superhuman movies.
I see, Elina, that you could talk for hours about this new superhuman, but let's listen what Leslie has to say about the future megatrends of 5G.
Yeah, I think, Elina, putting it as having superhuman powers is exactly right. But for me, I find it actually quite empowering to understand the mechanism of how 5G accomplishes these things. And so the way that I like to think about this is the concept of what I call splitting the chip. Because if we think about now, we have all these wonderful supercomputers that surround us all the time. And, you know, this is a supercomputer. My laptop is a supercomputer. But it means that it's got a big chip in it that's actually quite expensive, and it generates a lot of heat, and it takes a lot of battery. And this idea of splitting the chip means that we can have these smaller, lighter end devices that don't cost so much, that don't use so much battery power, that therefore have a longer battery life, and that can give us smaller, lighter devices like augmented reality glasses that actually look just like eyeglasses, or the kinds of sensors that you were talking about that can actually be much more integrated into our lives. And then where 5G comes in is that end device, that smaller, cheaper, lighter, long battery life end device, connects over 5G to a big stack of servers sitting in the network. And instead of having one CPU or GPU, computer or graphical processing unit, in the end device, because there's one CPU in here because that's all I can afford. That's all anybody can afford to buy this phone. But if you put that stack in the network, now suddenly it can be a stack of 40 GPUs. And so now that's the power. That's the power. And 5G is the necessary connection between these two things. And that's how you can have these small light end devices and these sensors integrated into our lives around us, but then accessing far more significant computer power than I can get in this device today. And that's how we get the super dog smelling, the ability to actually, like Facebook is working on right now, they've already announced they're working on augmented reality glasses. They're not public, but, or, you know, they're not a thing yet, but they're working on it, where they match the gaze of your eyes to the sounds that are here, that are around you in the room, and it prioritizes only the sounds that you see. And so you're exactly right. These are the early kinds of things that are going to give us superhuman powers. And so I think sensory augmentation with head-mounted devices that are ultimately augmented reality devices that give us information about the world as we move through it, that's going to totally change the relationship between humans and computers. And that's going to be the lasting legacy of 5G. It's going to be getting us away from using screens, 2D screens and keyboards as our main computer interface, and changing to having our computing and our understanding of the world integrated with the world as we move through it, and as something that we can perceive, you know, just in a very natural way that we speak and we gesture to. And keyboard, what's that?
Amazing. Thanks, Leslie. In your speech, I heard some keywords that were very much relating to Sophia's work, like battery life, energy, splitting, and, well, yeah, how does it look like from the energy perspective? Will it be able to cover all the needs and of the 5G development?
Thank you, Maya. Yeah, the future sure sounds exciting to me. As we work to increase cooperation in energy issues in the Nordic-Baltic region, it's quite natural for me to go to this megatrend that is the energy transition, which means that we are now shifting from traditional energy sources to renewable or carbon neutral ones, and all the new solutions and applications that come with it, obviously. So for digitalization, this has implications that kind of goes both ways, because to be able to digitalize and, for example, run a large data storage center, the access to stable energy is crucial. And then thanks to the digital solutions such as 5G, the grid can become even more stable and robust to secure this supply. So it's kind of a mutual dependence. But then, of course, when everything is suddenly online, it's also raising these questions about vulnerabilities such as cybersecurity and the crucial infrastructure. So just to sum up for me, I would say that the ongoing energy transition needs to happen really close to the digital innovation so that they can kind of develop together.
Thank you, Sophia. We also thought that energy sector goes very well together with 5G. Therefore, we are here in this company. So just to sum up, from superhumans that are not disturbed by any heavy devices, that devices are dispersed in the room, into the space, wherever, and there's a constant flow of energy. These are the megatrends of 5G. This is what will happen in the future. But let's step back a little bit and understand and talk, why is envisioning the future important, and how we can think about it, and why should we think about future? So, Sophia, maybe your turn.
Yeah, well, at Nordic Energy Research, we work a lot with different scenarios and outlooks for the energy sector, where we kind of envision the future and point at different opportunities, and these are the options and so on. And we're doing this because we want, it's a way of saying, are we on track? And ensure that we are not falling behind, because we are in fact trying to reach the Paris goals, which are in the future, but not really that far ahead. So thinking about the future is to find opportunities, and at the same time looking at where we are right now to see, okay, we need to speed this up. But then I would also like to mention, since we are talking about the future and it has all these amazing positive visions, we really must do, what we really must do is to envision also the potential negative side effects of these different scenarios. Because I think also the smartest and the most environmentally friendly new innovation thing, it might cause unexpected backlash if we haven't already envisioned it. So it shouldn't be unexpected to us, because we need to expect it to be able to actually prevent it if it's something that we don't desire.
Thank you, Sophia. So be cautious, and that's why I think about the future, so that you can be aware and take the necessary steps. Great. Leslie, how about you? Why do you think about the future?
Well, there's a saying in English that if you don't know where you're going, then you're never going to get there. And so, the future is too important to let happen accidentally. and so what Sophia said about planning for a positive future and also watching out for a negative future is extremely important. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to look at science fiction, both in terms of envisioning a positive future, so the positive developments of something like Star Trek. Plus, also very important to look at the negative sides of things, like Terminator. In the Terminator movies, the Skynet, the computers, they start killing off humans 4 hours after becoming self-aware. And okay, that's a Hollywood script, but still, it's important to have those kinds of things in mind to understand what the stakes really could be if we mess this stuff up. And so, it makes it easy to recognize the futures that we don't want and to flag ahead of time, like, oh, this is a path we shouldn't want to go down to. All you need to do is say, like, Terminator or Big Brother, and everybody knows what you're talking about, and then that can actually help guide you towards something that is more positive. And but Elina Sophia also brought up a good point. There's someone from Google who famously says that every solution to a problem brings up new problems. So my mobile phone actually lets me make calls from being away from my desk. That's a great solution to that problem. But now I have to find a charging point somewhere. That's a different problem. And we really do have to think through the second order effects of the things that we create for the future. What are the implications, good and bad, of everything that we have in mind for putting in place for the future?
Thanks, Leslie. So embracing complexity, what the future might bring. Elina, your turn. Why future?
I agree, actually. I think a lot of people have experienced really unbelievable things happening when they just formulated what they want. And that's why envisioning the future can help to focus toward the things you really want to happen. And it also helps to get out of everyday routine and maybe see bigger picture and other totally new possibilities, what you cannot otherwise see, actually.
Thank you. I always enjoy talking about future, be it megatrends of food or megatrends of 5G or bioeconomy, because for me, thinking about future means thinking about sustainability, and exactly that's what you covered. So what are the opportunities, but what are also challenges on the way and what we should be aware of? And I think all in all, it's within this region, the Nordic Baltic region or Baltic Sea region, we need to talk and think more about the future. As we know, the past is very different. It's kind of splitting us, but the future can be common if we imagine it such. But then let's turn to the second most important topic, or the priority. And the question is, how can we enable more female leaders to participate in sectors where there is low female representation, such as 5G and energy? And Sofia, let's start with you, as you have already experience in enabling, empowering female participation in different ways in the energy sector.
Yeah, well, I'm involved in a network for women in the energy sector, which is called Nordic Energy Equality Network. And we try to highlight women's position in this sector because quite male-dominated. So we are currently doing a report on gender diversity and gender balance at organization level in the energy sector. And we look at both business and academia and authorities and so on. And then, for example, we look at if these organizations have a gender equality policy, gender equality strategy, or something similar. And of course, many of them do. But then the next question would be then how they actually implement it. Is this just a nice piece of paper saying that, oh, we believe that men and women are equal? Or is there actually a plan? Do you have any goals? Okay, good, you have goals. What do you do to actually follow up on these goals? Do you have an annual evaluation, or how do you measure it, and so on? So it's all about really if you actually walk the talk. And I also think it's important that organizations have these discussions continuously, because frankly, some might be uncomfortable speaking about gender and diversity issues since they simply are not used to it. So I think the more we just talk about it, the more it will become a natural thing. And then not to forget that change can often come up by what might initially be an uncomfortable situation or a conversation.
Thank you, Sophie. You lead with an example. I think the 5G sector could learn a lot from you and follow. Elina, your turn. How can we enable more female leaders in the 5G sector?
I'm part of Riga Tech Girls community, and in our work with research and different events we organize, we see how actually very important is to have the role models. Psychologically, it is easier to imagine yourself in the industry if you see other women here. And therefore, it is important to show up, just to show up and say, here I am in this industry, and you are also more than welcome to join there. And the other thing is actually that it is very important to introduce the technologies, are wide range of skills, not only coding, and as it is actually seen by many people, especially with the 5G, actually with the background of different industries, you just need to learn at least basic skills and basic principles for technologies, and then you can just with your idea actually very easily build or do something with 5G.
Thank you, Elina. And now, Leslie, maybe you can give a context where you are located and how does it look like from your perspective?
Yeah, because Elina, I'm so glad that you mentioned role models, because it's important for women to not only come into technological roles, but then also to have a career progression and then to become leaders as they become older. And I am older, I'm in my 50s. And so I'm normally in Silicon Valley, where I'm, not only are there not that many women, there's not that many older people. And so I'm like, could literally be the grandmother of almost everybody that I meet with, which is, kind of, but why aren't there more older women in tech? A huge part of it is that because tech is dominated by men, quite often there is not an understanding of the pressures that women have outside the workforce. And actually, the inequality in pay is an issue that many companies are actually addressing. In fact, Nokia last year, on its own, went and did an equal pay exercise across the entire country, making sure that every woman was actually paid equally to all of the men. And they found that there were women whose salaries didn't need bumping up, and it was like, oh my God, we have to fix this, and they did, which is great. But as a woman, I have children, and I now have elderly parents, and the care of both of those, it's called the sandwich generation. They fall to me. And that actually takes away from my ability to work. And so my workplace needs to understand that. Happily, my company does. I'm in a hotel room in Washington, D.C., because I've had to fly to the East Coast so I can look after my parents. And I have to be in quarantine for 14 days before I can be with them. And Nokia understands this and allows me to do the work from the hotel room and then from my parents' house later on. And so, giving me that ability, and happily having good work leave possibilities if my parents really fall ill and I have to take work leave to care for them. Nokia will understand that. Not many tech companies have those kinds of policies, at least in the United States, because they're run by young men and even young women who haven't experienced this and don't understand. These are the kinds of things that make women leave the workforce entirely. And because if the pressure comes between work and a family, many women will take family, and then they will not reach the top. And so companies need to be aware of that and to support the women, because, honey, I'm your future, okay? You're headed here, whether you know it or not.
Amazing.
Yeah. Sophia, looks like you have something to add to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to completely agree with you. And I also think these social norms, they won't just go away just because we are shifting, doing this digital revolution, or we need to address them, such as women spending more time on housework and childcare. And right now, as we are in the middle of being forced to work from home, a lot of us, this must be the perfect time for employers to make adaptations for a more family-friendly workplace where the staff can actually combine work and family life. And also where I work, we are quite lucky because it has always been quite flexible. And I think it's a good way to keep women in the organization, and certainly to attract more women to leader positions, because they might otherwise turn away because due to these old traditions, they are expected to come in early and stay at the office on overtime. So I think it's really, really a good moment to re-evaluate how and where we work. And just to connect to 5G, I expect a lot from the future. More interruptions, no more blurry camera pictures. It's going to be revolutionizing, I hope, to the home office.
Thank you for this journey from policies, from kind of state policies, national policies, and company policies, and then your own private life. And it turns out that this really should be a dialogue of understanding between the employer and the employee, how to take into account all the difficulties that women are facing to actually excel and grow in their roles. And of course, when we look at the Nordic region, we see that much of the best practice examples we can find there when it comes to this particular topic. And also in our new Nordic-Baltic ministerial declaration, this inclusiveness and care is in the digitalization agenda, just like also greening and making everything more sustainable. So I imagine that there's quite still lots of inequality in these kind of developments, but it's very good to hear that there are good practice examples like Leslie and Sophia, you are here with us, so it's possible, and others can learn from your employers. Now when we have walked some kind of, we have walked quite far from megatrends to female leader empowerment, I want to ask you quite a tricky question. How likely it is that the future megatrends will be women empowering megatrends? Leslie, we start with you.
Well, since I've got the care of my parents very much on my mind right now, that is actually one of the things that really comes to mind for me, which is the having 5G and those changing interfaces that I was talking about is actually going to enable the elderly to a great degree. Because right now, my parents cannot use the internet at all, not at all. They used to be able to know how to work a computer, and they don't remember how anymore. They remember how to work a TV and how to pick up a phone, and that's it. And so they can't call an Uber. They can't have food delivered to them from a restaurant. All these things that we're starting to take for granted, they don't know. Like my mom was trying to get the directions to a new doctor's office over the phone, and she asked the nurse, how do I get there? Because she doesn't have a smartphone and she doesn't have a map on her phone, and the nurse couldn't give her directions. Literally could not give, because the new world needs to be able to talk to the older world. And we've gotten so used to our devices and our gadgets that we forget that there's people who don't have them. And so that's actually also for everybody who's developing services out there. Remember, there is a subset of the population that can't use those services. And so remember to include them somehow. But the way that 5G will actually help break down these barriers is in that shifting from having everything in a smartphone where you have to know what the icon means and you have to know, how do I open the screen? Having that shift to more voice and gesture-driven kinds of communications. And, probably within the next decade, we'll actually have, as I was mentioning, these augmented reality enhanced eyeglasses that will do vision correction, that will do audio enhancement, like Elina was talking about, that will maybe give subtitles for the words that people are speaking so that they will replace hearing aids. They will actually have front-facing cameras to be able to understand our hand gestures. And with that kind of a thing, that will enable the elderly and the very young and the illiterate, people who may not be able to use smartphones or the internet now, to be able to just say, Alexa, deliver pizza from my favorite place at 5 o'clock tonight, or to have menus that are, in front of you that you can touch and swipe, Minority Report style. All of that is in the chain. And again, enabled by 5G with that split chip concept, with the very light end device connecting to powerful stacks of servers in the network that make it all possible.
Wow, amazing how the solution of women empowerment could come through this kind of easing different generations navigation throughout the life.
I know. Well, actually, I should really talk. So if my parents can actually call an Uber, they don't have to call me in California. So I call an Uber for them, because that's the kind of stuff that's happening now. They really can't. I support everything they do because they can't use the internet, and that's the kind of thing that makes life really hard for me right now.
So very different interferences of the internet. But Elina, how about your superhumans? How likely they will take care of women empowerment in the future?
Mm-hmm. I think I agree with Sofia that not everything really depends from technologies. And we need to take some actions also and think about things by ourselves as a human as well, of course. But I believe that technologies can help to be more inclusive for everyone. For example, with VR and AR, actually, you can be whatever you want to be. You can build an avatars to be as a man, as a woman, android or unicorn, whatever. So I think you can experience different roles and really feel step in different shoes, actually. And that's maybe to understand how the other feels.
Mm-hmm. To understand how the other feels and also to play very different roles. So you want to say that in this superhuman world with all the gadgets around, who knows?
Who knows what you are?
Okay, and Sofia, from the perspective, of energy, how likely that future megatrends will be women empowering megatrends?
Yeah, when it's come to this megatrend that is the energy transition, where we move from traditional fossil energy sources to renewables, and also facing tomorrow's energy system, there are a lot of opportunities for more inclusion and more equality, because this kind of shakes up things a little bit. And the energy sector has traditionally been quite male-dominated, but this, of course, also means that you're missing valuable resources and capacities. So it's important, and we do see an increased share of women in the renewable energy sector. as well as we see more girls choosing STEM subjects in school or women entering engineering education and so on. But there are still great imbalances and many old barriers and obstacles that remain. So for women to be a part of this megatrend and kind of having an impact on it, it's important that we keep addressing these obstacles for a more inclusive energy transition, because it really needs to be inclusive, like Leslie mentioned also about elder people and so on. We need to include more voices because this should be for everyone.
Yeah, I think we have a picture of what will happen and how and what next in quite a far future. But let's talk about today, tomorrow, next week, next month. What are concrete recommendations for how we, as individuals, can act to support the development that we want to see? And Leslie, let's start with you.
I talked a lot about my parents before, but now it's time for me to talk about my kids, because as Nokia's head trend scout, I tell you, a huge amount of the scouting work that I do, I can do it without even leaving my house, just by going upstairs and seeing what my kids are doing in their bedrooms. Because I've got two boys and they're both teenagers and they're both into gaming. And gaming, it's not just about playing games. This is actually the beginning of alternate virtual worlds that more and more of us are going to be spending more and more time in. For example, about 5 years ago, I'd say, my children, the money that they got from their allowance, they would spend on physical things, mostly Legos. But now, as they're in their teens, almost every single dollar that they get, that they earn or get in their allowance, goes to digital goods. It goes to things that they buy, avatars or skins for themselves in some of the games, or computer equipment. My 12-year-old just bought an expensive microphone so that it could enable his own Twitch stream that he has. Everything, and they do all of their, not now, especially with COVID, all of their schooling goes through the computer and that virtual classroom, all of their entertainment, all of their socializing, all of their social stuff is done through that computer. And so that actually helps me see that. And far from it being a limiting thing, it actually is really opening up their minds and making them more global than I ever was at that age, because they're seeing all kinds of content from other people around the world on YouTube. You know, my kids can do a pretty good Australian accent. I don't know how many Australian accents I'd even heard when I was their age, and so there's a direct connection to other people that's happening in the youth of today. There's the use of technology, there's the comfort with technology and the comfort with these new worlds, and the concept of digital goods, and the fact that if I buy something in the digital space, it still has value. Even if I can't physically touch it here, it still has value to me. Our economies are going to shift hugely as a result of this kind of thing. And and 5G is the absolute enabler of all of this. And so we're really going to be, so if you, but okay, now maybe you don't have kids, and maybe, or if you do, maybe your kids aren't gamers. So what you can do in that case is get involved, check out these new worlds, go get yourself a VR headset and put it on and understand what is going on, understand the worlds that are out there, see what people are doing, and understand how captivating this is, and understand that whatever kind of a company you have, in VR chat, somebody might have already created a fan site around your brand. You might want to check that out and make sure that your brand is actually nicely being represented in this new world, because you might not even be aware of what is being done with your brand out there in this new universe. There's all kinds of stuff going on, and just get a VR headset, get out there, see what's happening.
Wow, experience and do things.
Do it. Yeah, don't just read about it. Do it.
Do it. Excellent. Elina, what do you do? Or do you do?
I think I totally agree with Leslie that it's really important to listen and look what the kids are doing. But I think it's even more exciting and important to do and learn things together with kids. as we actually with Maya are doing. We every Sunday meet now in Zoom with a group of parents together with kids, and we are learning 3D drawing in Blender software from YouTube tutorials. And it's really interesting to see how those kids are actually imagining based on their tech experience, what actually is possible and what they think in future will be possible.
Yeah, I can just add that really this world is so colorful, as Leslie described it. It's amazing, and once you are in, you don't want to get out so quickly, because it's just so exciting and so different from what we can experience without technology. Sophia, how about you? What recommendations?
Yeah, I also wanted to say that we need to listen to young people, and hearing this, it also reminds me that I too have a gamer kid, and I need to learn more, I think. But yeah, this shouldn't obviously just be empty words to involve young people. They are in the center of the digital revolution. And we also know that climate change and global warming, these are the most important issues to young people today, and they are using digital solutions to make this extremely visible. I mean, during COVID-19 now, the Fridays for Future, they are arranged online instead because people can't get together. We also remember Greta Thunberg twittering from her voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. So there are so many opportunities. And I think we need to have conversations like this about the future as well, to build the different scenarios. And if we do so, we kind of increase our chances to be able to ride this wave instead of just drowning in it. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, sorry, one thing that I'll add. It's important to see what, to experience all these things, but then to ask yourself, okay, if this thing is happening now, what is the next logical step? What is the next place where this is going to go? Because that's actually where the business opportunities are going to be, and that's where the challengers are going to come from to traditional businesses. Because the things that your kids are doing right now, yay, they're fun, but it's not just that. They are actually the stepping stone to whatever the next thing is. And if you can use that to then imagine what the next thing is, then you're well positioning yourself for the future.
So thinking about the future is also strategic and can bring some business case ideas. Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure to talk to you and to know you. And from this very diverse and rich experience you had, I think we put together this puzzle in a very good way. And let me just summarize what we discussed. So we started with megatrends in 5G. We're sketching these future scenarios of superhumans, of splitting the chip and renewable energies. Then we move towards the context of the world where these megatrends are taking place and trying to understand how about women empowerment in this new world. Is there growth? Is there options to be more inclusive in those sectors? And eventually we looked at the steps to be taken to move forward to the future we want to see. And by listening to kids and understanding young people. So I want to conclude this panel discussion now that the panel that wanted to be heard suggested to listen. And I think this is an amazing kind of summary that all of you suggested to listen, to be very attentive to the context, to different generations, to different happenings, and to dive into this future that is happening already in the kids' minds and their lives. So I think it's time for applause before we go back to the studio. So my rain tree is here, and thank you so much.
Welcome back. Welcome back. What a girls-only night this has been. And I have to tell you, I don't think I've ever been in girls-only night where every single you are highly skilled, highly knowledgeable, and it was pure pleasure to listen. And by the way, you've been talking about role models, and I have to tell you, listening to you, I think if you would be 5G role models, the enrollment and implementation would go just like that. And you should also check on our communication platform. It looks to me that in the commentary box, in the comments box. There's already your fan site going on right now. So if you would be so kind to go out and check their unanswered questions, it would be very, very nice. Before we see our artist's view on your discussion and see how it looked from artist's point of view, I have some questions, and these questions are from Joanna Lenkova. And what key megatrends outside of the technology sector are impacting the future of 5G, and how? Social, political, environmental. You were mentioning your parents, your kids, gaming. Anything else?
If I may,
yeah, Maya.
To start with this, because we just developed also megatrends for food, and we went out of the food sector as well. And one of the key trends we saw is anxiety and fear. And also Sophia mentioned that, maybe Leslie and Elina mentioned it less. But I think this fear and anxiety for the future is one of the key megatrends, and technology will inevitably have to address this trend. And of course, through different health solutions, and we know that 5G is excelling in the health tech as well. So most likely we will want to follow our health condition, planetary health condition, and everything we can to kind of remain the sense of control, even if it's completely lost.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Panelists, go ahead.
It's I actually would suggest the future of democracy is actually extremely important here. I'm sitting in as I said, in a hotel in DC. I'm 5 blocks from the White House, and yeah, future democracy.
It's quite scary, isn't it, right now?
Yeah, it sure is. So, if America falters, please, everyone else pick up the lead. Thank you.
Latvia is great place to be. Great place to be, really. Then another question from Joanna, and that's the last one. I think mentoring is a great way to empower professionals who are interested in the industry. Do you have any mentors or somebody who brought you in and took care of you? Anybody? Can you think of any?
You can talk about mentoring.
Elina?
About mentoring, yes. I have been mentored by myself, but for me, I would say, yeah, I work in tech industry really for a while, and my mentors have been males, actually, and they have been really welcoming me and really inspiring me to do more things and allowing me to do. I think in my workplace as well, yes, that is really the place what allows me to grow. And those male champions are also very important, the same as actually the women role models.
Thank you very much. Really, thank you.
Yes, maybe you have something to add to this.
Let's see what artists' view is on this discussion panel, and you ladies empowering 5G and the future, and followers of yours, and fun sites too. So wider communication, not just smartphones. It will not be a problem in 5G future. We have to plan our future, Leslie says, and then let's dive into the future. So, ladies, you've been so inspiring to us. It was a pure pleasure. Thank you very much for being with us today. So, see you on 5G Techritory whenever you want it. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
And we just found out it's technology for people, not vice versa. Thank you. Well, today we have one more talk left, but what a talk. The case of private-public partnerships and the deployment of wireless networks. We know the investment is very, very special question, and we will address that question with some solutions. So be back, please, at 7:40 Central European Time, and in 5 minutes, and we'll be talking about the case of private-public partnerships in the deployment of wireless networks, talking 5G, Techritory.
We are the Riga Freeport, the one that borders the European Union and Russia. The world may have seen bigger ports, but when it comes to quality, whether it be our team, technology, or logistics, not many ports have the same standards as we do. We will be glad to work with you and support you in developing infrastructure. We will meet and guide your ships to the pier, and we will send them to their next destination. Riga Freeport. Big in business, big in quality.
Over the horizon, in what is tomorrow, lies the unknown. Applications we can't imagine today will change the way we live and suddenly become the norm. 5G is the path forward. However, it requires a staggering investment that means missteps aren't an option. Cisco provides the most important pieces of that investment: a flexible software-based service creation platform, security, and automation. Pay-as-you-grow licensing removes the risk in your journey to 5G and gives you the agility to move quickly. With a proven, open, and cloud-native architecture designed for now and the future, you get best-in-class network scaling that is simple and automated. Proprietary barriers disappear, and new revenue opportunities open. Services can be deployed when and where customers need them. Only Cisco provides innovative technology leadership that spans network operators, enterprises, the public sector, IoT, and web providers, bringing the expertise and security to support you every step of the way. With a flexible cloud-to-client approach, you can be ready to provide the unimagined. Between the needs of today and the trajectory of tomorrow, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.